Home. What a word in this world. What a gift to grow from the waters and the soil.
Do you know your way to the rivers? Do you know your way to the ocean's tongue? Do you know your way up to the clouds? Do you know your way to the mountain's crown?
Water is energy. It's alive, it's flowing, it's a constant movement. It's our substance. We're made up of water. The spirit is in all of us. The water, the plants, the animals, and ourselves. We're all connected.
The people cannot be healed until the land is healed, and the land cannot be healed until the people are healed by the land. And it's a lifelong journey to discover that mutuality of healing of the land and the people that can happen.
My family's been here since the 40s. My grandfather ran our local landfill. He owned a junkyard and he destroyed the earth there. Maybe I'm trying to make up for the lack of accountability he had. Maybe deep down inside I am, I don't know. But I need to take care of this. We're at Elsie's, it's on the Sullivan Creek. This was a swimming hole as kids. Back in the 80s, we were swimming out here. I knew that there was trash down there. I didn't know how much. What I saw down there is completely unacceptable. And I said, you know what, we're just gonna do it. So we brought in a group and 50 yards of trash from down here. And then there was from a private property right down the tracks here about 1/8 of a mile. We removed 50 yards of an encampment that was abandoned. We hauled that out by quads and we hauled the 50 yards here out by a 700-foot skyline. Everything in cargo nets. Came up, went up to the railroad tracks and we loaded it in trailers and took it out. And we did that with minimal cost and minimal time. I mean, we had 20 volunteers. We cleaned it up in 2 days. There isn't a government department that can do what we do. I'm holding myself accountable.
If the local community doesn't know what's going on, doesn't have an involvement, then that doesn't build that environmental ethic that is so essential to our future, I believe, as humanity. People getting to experience nature, it's connecting to more of our roots of what it means to be human. We need to see what we're doing and how we can help to make it better at the same time. One of the things I love about our volunteer program is getting to reach out to locals and bring them out and like, hey, we're gonna go and, plant trees in the rimfire burn scar, or we're gonna go and collect willow cuttings that we're gonna plant on the river later, because locals remember the impacts of things like the rimfire and they want to be a part of the restoration of that.
And it makes me happy to see them all when they all get there. And I mean, I've made friendships with people that if I saw them on the street, we probably never happened. But we found a common bond, something that we all feel passionate about, and we all let the other stuff go. And I think if we did that more as a society, we'd probably have a lot less of this. We'd have a lot less problems in our lives, problems in the world.
People that I've worked with, they have big smiles on their faces when they've finished a work day. Give people the experience of getting to work with hand tools, work out in nature, and knowing that other people were going to come and see the work that they've done and get to benefit from the work that they've done.
The more we communicate, work together, and appreciate each other, the better our world will be.
We've all become so disconnected. That's what hurts. We've all become so disconnected from each other and our surroundings.
We have to get that connection to Mother Earth. It's really important because without that connection, then what are we doing?
And so I think that bringing people out on, say, volunteer days is really great, because a lot of people are aware that, okay, yeah, we're degrading our environment, but how can I help? How can I make a difference? How can I feel like it's not just hopeless?
Society has blocked us from getting that connection. And so what are you going to change in your life to make that connection How does that look for you? What kind of difference can you make? Because there's a lot to do out here. You don't really have to look very far. It's right in your backyard. You know, you can start in your home and get more involved. Get your hands dirty, take your shoes off, touch Mother Earth.
Get back to the basics, right? Get back to the basics. And I think as a society, we have to hold ourselves at a higher standard than what we do when it really involves the trash and trash getting into our waterways. I can't change the world, but I can change my world one pile at a time. And this community is my world. If I can make it a little bit better, I'm good with that. And that's really what it is. That's really what it is. It's the community.
I think that that's extremely important, that the local community knows what's going on in their local environment and also is a part of it. They can make a difference.
We steward the Sierra Nevada that everybody benefits from. And that is the economic driver of this state. We're important even though we don't have the votes up here.
The Stanislaus watershed is one of the most incredible watersheds in California. And what makes it so incredible is that it's one of the most highly developed watersheds in the state of California. And it's also one of the most important watersheds for the environment. And the balance between those two needs is still ongoing, and there's a rich history and a lot of fights in the past over how this watershed would be used. One thing that many people don't know is neither Tuolumne County or Calaveras County hold any water storage rights in New Melones Reservoir. And it is astounding to me that so much of our land that was taken away from us by that reservoir, that there's no water storage that was given to either of those counties as part of the negotiations to build that reservoir. And in my view, having storage in that reservoir would be one of the most important things that our counties could possibly have when it comes to our future and making sure we have a reliable water supply.
So they have the beautiful Stanislaus River, so then it gets dammed because of unchecked demand on a finite resource. Instead of maybe looking at our carrying capacity, but then it gets political. And nobody wants to say, hey, I think we should have a timeout here and think about this. I think now the public are recognizing the loss to the environment of taking that water out of the whole parent water, you know, all of it, and the job it did. So when you take that amount out, you're going to affect the habitat. You're going to probably affect the climate. 65% of California's water is coming from the snowpack in the Sierra, which is now no longer reliable.
We have all these huge city centers. I mean, we could just say for where this water goes of the Bay Area, and all these hugely populated spaces that we are coming to terms that we cannot sustainably provide for. And yet all the water, timber, and primary resources, even food coming from the valley, comes from these high watersheds.
And now as the snowpack becomes scarcer, it's incumbent on them to leave as much as they can in that river with the depleting source water depleting, and yet still provide water for the people. We are inventing ways to reuse the water, and that's a good thing, because that's the way we can extend the life of water, is to continue cleaning it up and reusing it and protecting it at the watershed level, not just at the commodity level. I think that they're on their way to practicing the stewardship of it. They'll get there. They'll get that. Yeah.
We see all the bad, we hear all the bad, but you know what? There's a lot of good going on and a lot of good things.
Everybody's got a story, you know, and a usefulness, especially in the regeneration of the land.
Everything has a purpose, and our purpose is to care for everything that is here. So we share that bond, and we share the spirit with the plants and the animals and the water.
We are of this earth, we come from this earth, and we need to continue to be a part of this earth.
Permaculture is this way of approaching human presence on Earth, particularly our effect on ecology and our ability to amplify the beneficial characteristics, I would say, of natural systems and actually become a natural expression of creation ourselves. A lot of people nowadays have popularized it in its food growing systems, and it's been a beautiful model of ethical design science and of human relationship to ecology, as well as our farming and even our social systems, particularly if we brought it down to the three ethical bases of the design science that it is earth care, people care, and a return of surplus. It's just always worthy of saying that that concept is rooted in all indigenous people.
We have science that helps back up some of the cultural practices that we've done. We were caretakers of the land, more like farmers in a sense. They're starting to understand that the soil was manipulated. And it wasn't just cleaning up the brush around the trees and lighting burn piles. We're talking about actually creating the grasslands.
You'll go all through this meadow and gophers will be pushing up red clay soil. And then up over here on this hill is kind of like a grayish brown. But right there, more on the red clay side, is the darkest black soil I've ever touched. A really amazing thing, the oldest compost pile you've ever seen in your life.
And we would use these soils, these black soils that we would create.
To the original people, that oak grove that has manzanita, black oaks, ceanothus, has medicine, food, it's like first peoples knew that, treated these places like gardens.
The oaks have become dependent on humans. It's not sudden oak death. When you get too much going on in the soil, the roots start to rot, the trees become weak, they become prone to disease, and we used to take care of all that and burn around these oak trees.
And I just can't help but see that importance of seeing especially these ancestral oak woodlands as orchards.
You'll start seeing all those older black oak, and they're being choked out by conifer. And then when you study the dead ones, and you see that they have a branch that's like at a right angle, but they're dead, that was full sunlight. That's like a tree standing there like this.
It's incredibly easy to notice because there's like a 300-year-old black oak, and all these trees, I'll bet you this tree is no more than 50 years old. You can see what the forest was 100 years ago just by seeing through the pines.
We have removed the caretakers of the land.
In these areas that were dry, Miwok areas of habitation wasn't dry at one time. And of course we have a lot more conifer that's come in.
There's this 2-week period between June and July where all of our springs dry up, and this pond drops like 2 feet in the matter of a week or two. And I'm like, man, where is all that water going? That is not like a seasonal percolation, And last year it just finally landed that right after that week or 2 weeks where all of it drops, all the yellow pines, all the ponderosas and Jeffreys just push out their first big growth of the year. So there's all the water, So it's one of the fastest growing trees that's the most susceptible to drought and then the bark beetle. And so we have this plant that's soaking up all of our water. And then you get all these pines dying, and then we have a wildfire hazard. So it's just this massive pendulum.
Got to do something, because right now if a fire came through, the Stanislaus will burn catastrophically. There's no doubt about it. It will completely just be destroyed, just like the Rim Fire, just like the Dixie Fire, the Caldor, and all of that. So really hoping that it doesn't happen here.
That works into policy, because I can be in an interdisciplinary team in an area that's just burned, and you get all the tree planters, we got to plant this back into conifer, and I'm going, no, because what I found were monos. These are seed milling implements. Seed, that was open. That was what we call a prey base. You build it by the seeds.
Thousands of years of acorn shucks and who knows what else. And those old people telling the old stories of the Yosemite Valley flowing year round, and you could see wall to wall. And then the hubris that you go into one of those first meadows and like a placard is there saying that we're here to witness this alpine meadow turn into an evergreen forest.
When Europeans first showed up to California, they described it as a beautiful park-like setting.
Oak trees almost as wide as your car or bigger.
Not understanding that these were passed down through generations and that we took care of the land, culturally burning, removing duff and brush.
With cultural burning, you get the nutrients back into the ground and into the soil.
So that there's a healthier forest ecosystem.
I've really enjoyed the few experiences that I've had in groups with prescribed fire and cultural burning, having a glimpse at how the old people were tending the water and the fire with slow walking fire every year somewhere. And from my understanding, is every 2 to 5 years, everywhere would see fire at least from 3,000 feet down.
There's certain cultural practices that we can't just do. For instance, burning of the forest.
The forest is so unnatural now from 100+ years of fire suppression. How do you get it back to where you could start burning again and getting back to the natural state? And then how do you do that when you have homes that have been built in the wildland-urban interface? And so you can't burn through there because you burn the homes up. So it just makes it really difficult.
Of course, there was preparation that was done, and this was a cultural practice that was done over generations to where we understood the safety and what was going to happen.
I think we have to thin selectively around the really sensitive zones to get the thickness reduced. And then as soon as we do that, I think it's about reintroducing fire. We gotta just try to invest in the fuel reduction projects and just be thoughtful about it.
Starting with surveying areas for threatened species and archaeological sites, and then thinning excess trees and underbrush with a controlled burn at the end.
You know, until you get the density reduced, then if you try to reintroduce fire, it's so easy for it to just go out of control, and then it gets up into the crown, and then you lose your entire forest.
In restoring these areas, in reducing the underbrush, we are hoping to make it possible for wildfires to be able to burn and not be the out of control raging infernos such as the 2013 Rim Fire that burned over 250,000 acres.
Understanding the natural elements of California being in the ring of fire, lightning, fires are natural element. We have a lot of stories around that with coyote and fire. The tool that was given to us to help maintain the landscape.
It'd be sweet to see the restoration communities for hydrology come together with fire ecology because they're just so intermixed and woven. Fire, water, just take care of both of them. There's another beautiful example here of where the forestry piece comes into hydrology. Again, in the removal of these 2-3 foot diameter yellow pines and actually using that woody debris as kind of like a band-aid in the hydrological sense of essentially from where this spring enters the meadow here. When I first got here, it was about a 3 foot wide, 4 foot deep incised channel that just went straight out. So none of the water you see over here was allowed to really spread out and sink in. And we used a lot of these logs that came out of thinning the spring, we actually used to spread the water out. And that's where permaculture earthworks and history and that really comes in really beautifully. To get into the specifics of what we're actually looking at is we took about 2 foot diameter or less ponderosas. Here was the first one we placed, and then there's a second one and a third one. Setting them in the subsoil so that it also prevents some erosion as well. The key point to understand here is that now there's 3 exits of that water where there used to just be one single eroding channel of water, whether for human infrastructure or hydrological infrastructure, supporting also the habitat that we can return beavers back into the high watersheds where they were removed. Under the management of beavers, all the waterways used to be meandering like a tapestry of waterways.
Indigenous knowledge with modern technology is a way we can do things.
We have excavators and bulldozers, so the effects of what we can create with the technology present, that we could do things like this in a matter of a day. One of my permaculture teachers really instilled it in me that we're actually living in a pretty special moment with petroleum-based mechanical means. It's been really beautiful to just see also the native grasses. Yellow dock has somehow just exploded in here. Loving it. Kind of dries up around June, so it's amazing to see the particular plants that are adapted. It was really sweet just again to name the ecological benefits. There was a great blue heron right here eating a frog, and then up on that hill was its mating partner eating a mole. It's cool to see, like, wow, that blue heron would have had nowhere to be up here.
What we understand as tech today, traditional ecological knowledge, was a huge part of creating this ecosystem.
TEK is how we would tend the land. So it's water, it's food, it's fire also.
We provided the necessities for the salmon to spawn and lay their eggs. We helped with that. We helped clear out certain areas, but also encouraged certain plants and things to grow.
This creek would have salmon in it, but now it doesn't due to dams.
Our waterways have been tremendously disturbed. I don't want to say destroyed because I have hope that we can restore. When something's destroyed, it's gone. We still have opportunity.
We're actually at Woods Creek. This is a very special spot. This is a village site for the Chicken Ranch Rancheria of Miwok Indians. Gold was found here. Because of the gold rush, the water is polluted. They used mercury in the water system to find gold.
During the gold rush, during the mining, mankind, when I say we, man, disturbed the waterways, disturbed the rock beds, which the salmon, you could say, smell and understand where they're going. We might see areas where we go along river systems, creeks, where you see giant rock piles that are lined up, in rows, understanding that these are tailing piles, that those rocks were removed out of the rivers. These are things that the salmon need to lay their eggs, to have safe, sturdy beds so they don't get washed out.
We have evidence of tailing piles on the property, and you can see the destruction that has happened because of that. We would really like to see that salmon come back up. Maybe, we have conversations about it. Putting in fish ladders, maybe taking a couple of dams down, restoring the land.
The Tuolumne River is home to salmon below the final dam down in LaGrange. There are native salmon that propagate down there. Populations have dwindled since impacts from dams and a variety of other impacts, as well as impacts from the decreased flow rates on the Tuolumne, because the minimum flow rate's a little bit low for healthy salmon to be able to thrive. So that's one of the projects that TRT works on in our San Francisco office, is trying to improve flow rates so that salmon habitat can thrive.
Dredger mining was a major impact to the river. The lower river was mined for gold and gravel for 3 or 4 decades, which completely changed that whole river system and degraded it.
We've destroyed the beds. There's no longer root systems and rocks. We've moved all the boulders. This has eroded the river systems and allowed them to flow too fast. Now they're washing out the beds.
So we've been doing quite a bit of work to improve the riverside habitat and in-channel habitat for spawning salmon and steelhead, and for also the baby salmon as they migrate out. They need to have lots of nice trees and forests along the river, but also access to floodplains, inundated floodplains. That's a place where they can really find lots of nutrients and lots of food before they get out to the ocean.
We actually have a project that we'll be working on this summer down at LaGrange, which is restoring salmon habitat and putting in gravel and rock for them to be able to breed, and restoring native plant species along the river and that riparian habitat as well.
They have lists for me to go over on what plants that they have. Phase 1 this summer.
Hopefully we can get to a place here in Tuolumne County where we can get the salmon up somehow. It's one of those things where we really need to sit down and talk,
Being aware of the whole cycle of waters and where we stand right now, just following that, the moon, and just all the real mysterious ways in which water in our bodies and of the earth, how she moves. Do you know your way to the river? Do you know your way to the ocean's tongue? Do you know your way up to the clouds? Do you know your way to the mountain's crown? Do you know your way on down? Do you know